Hey everyone, you're listening to the Simple Electronics Podcast. I'm your host, Dan from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay, but more on them later. Because right now I've got a very special guest. You know him from the Brian Lough YouTube channel and my personal favorite, the Lock and Load YouTube channel, both of which are a little dormant for now, but we're hoping to see something soon. Brian Lough, how are you?
Hey Dan, yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah, I forgot about the second channel there for a while. Um, yeah,
The wordplay is phenomenal because I think people have a tendency to pronounce your last name Lough because it's Lough. And
yeah,
so
English
jumping
is
into it,
tough.
it is because it depends whose English you're using.
Yeah, yeah, I hear low and luff, and yeah, very rarely do I hear lock. But like I really couldn't care less if somebody mispronounces my name. I'm not precious about it at all. So call me whatever you want.
Once I come out from the shadows and people start knowing who I am, my last name is horrible. So I mean, I have a feeling we're going to be compadres in that sense.
Fair. I'm excited. I don't know your last name, so it's not
Hmm.
even a behind the scenes thing for me to know it. So yeah,
Nobody knows me,
Patreon exclusive coming
not
up soon.
even. There'd
Ooh,
have to be a higher tier.
yeah.
Um, Look, I masquerade as the electronics channel, but I'm actually a dog channel. So how are the dogs?
Yeah, they're pretty good. Not to have too much of a downer on it, but our eldest one is getting old. She's 11 in September, but she's slowed down a lot in the last few months. So, but not too bad all the same. But yeah, it's definitely sort of the towards the I don't know latter stages, but nothing too severe.
Well,
Um,
that'll teach me to ask about people's dogs.
yeah, no, she's still good. The other one is full of energy. He's like 8, and he is not showing any signs of slowing up anytime soon. We actually just got hens, like backyard hens, and oh my god, has the younger one is called Riggins, after Friday Night Lights, the character Tim Riggins, who's kind of a lovable bad boy and pretty apt for the younger one. Uh, and he has gone full husky mode if the hens are out in their run. He's just like roaring the place down, like trying to get down to investigate.
Oh boy.
Um, yeah, I don't know. They're good dogs, though.
So just a practical update then. I'm actually curious, do you still have the robot mower and are you going to give us like a long-term update on it?
Yes to both of those questions, I would think. Yes to the first question. I can answer that very confidently because, yes, I still have it and it's still in operation. My yard layout, or garden as we would say here, has changed quite a bit since the original video. So the wire is an like the boundary wire. So for those who don't know, the most common types of robot mowers have like this wire that goes around the perimeter of the grass that you want to cut, and that's how the robot mower knows where to cut. It stays inside this boundary. That is such a mismatch in our uh, in our garden, because like we've just changed the shape of the garden so much in terms of like we added some like a veg garden, which I think is what you would say in North America. A garden for you would be somewhere you grow vegetables, right?
Correct, yeah, and we
Yeah,
don't call them veg, we say vegetables. For some reason, the
vegetables.
British, yeah, I don't know, it's a good abbreviation, but we don't use it
Yeah.
here, so I don't know.
Uh, yeah, so when I say garden, I think I mean yard for you guys, where the grass grows.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
the yard, yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. We would. Yeah, the whole garden, like the whole yard, like anything outside your back door would be garden for us. It's not just where you would grow vegetables. Um, yeah, so our yard has changed so much with just like when we added the vegetable garden. And like as I mentioned there, we are after adding hens, so they have a run that's taken up new space. And yeah, we got some like uh, works done in the back yard as well, and that was cordoned off. So like it's changed so much, and we've got new swings and things like that. And so, but it's still working fine, no problem. So this is it's. I got it in 2020, so it's this is its fourth year now, I think, if that makes sense. So it would have cut in 2020, 21, and 22. So that's 3 full years, and now this is its fourth year. So it's doing great. We also got a really cheap one for out the front. That's okay. It cuts very well, but it has no Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or anything, so it's a little bit more difficult to use because if something goes wrong, it has a couple of like LEDs and stuff, but it has no way of notifying you. So you'd kind of often just go out and see that it's stuck. Like, as in, it needs a bit of TLC just to like fix a few kind of potholes where it's getting stuck or whatever. It's also been really wet in Ireland this year. I think it's possibly the wettest July on record or something crazy like that, um, which isn't ideal for uh, robot mowers because the ground is quite soft, but also because it's warm and wet, the grass is growing a lot. So you kind of need to keep them going out even if the ground is soft. Um, so yeah, I would say that it is like my quick recap review of after 3 or 4 years. Still can't imagine life without it. Like, is it when I just see other people pushing a lawnmower, I'm like, I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore. Um,
That's definitely me. That
yeah,
I'm pushing the mower.
yeah. It's not that I ever really minded mowing the lawn. That was always okay, but it was just sort of like the crossover of when it was a good time to mow the lawn and when I was free to mow the lawn, like was usually sort of this small overlap. You know, probably typically weekends or maybe after you finished work in the evening time. And it's just kind of like those are times I don't want to be doing stuff. Uh, I did make the joke in the video a few years ago about like you could use that time to like go for a run or something to get your exercise in, and at the time that wasn't true. It's probably pretty true now, so at least I have that going for me.
Which is nice. For
Yeah.
those yeah, for those of you that don't follow, Brian 2 years ago made a really informative video, which basically cut through all the advertising BS and talked about the realities of, having a robot lawnmower, and it was quite an interesting video. When I clicked on it, it's just because I clicked every single, Brian Lough video, at the time, and I wasn't expecting much because it's just about a robot lawnmower. But Brian really went through and sort of answered all the questions I had, and a lot of and underlined things that I didn't think about, which actually made the video like like a really good video when it was just supposed to be about a robot lawnmower. So if you guys haven't seen it, I do encourage you to go check it out. I'll put a link in the description. Check out the video, and then you'll be one of the 680,000 people who have watched the video to date.
I did not know that that's what it was up to. I knew it was sort of probably north of 500,000, but I didn't know it was up at that. Um, yeah, that was an interesting video in terms of like it's so off brand for every other video on the channel, basically. But like it's sort of one of those things of like they weren't as expensive as I thought they were going to be, but they were still like $1,000, give or take. Uh, and that's not an insignificant amount of money. So like you're doing a lot of research to figure out, hey, how does this work and how does that work and how is it going to handle this? And you see so many videos of people installing them, and like they're completely redoing their lawn area, like as in they're like digging it up and reseeding it in preparation for this robot lawnmower. And I was like, there is no way I'm doing that. uh, so yeah, it was just sort of, I do try to take this approach with a lot of the videos I make, that it's like, what kind of video would I have liked to have come across in my journey to do what I was doing? Like, as in, yeah, so yeah, what kind of information would I have liked to have found? Um, because yeah, it was a lot more straightforward than I thought it would be, and it worked out probably better than I thought it would as well. So I was kind of happy to sort of cut through some of the marketing stuff because it wasn't sponsored or anything. Like I didn't have to say anything about anything. So even I don't know if the links are even affiliate links anymore on the video. Not that the main one wasn't, anyways. So like I really had nothing to gain by anybody going, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get a robot lawnmower now." So yeah, it was sort of like the types of things I would tell somebody who asked me in work about it, or a friend who said, "I'm thinking about getting one." Like, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
a bit more formal than I would talk to my friends, but yeah, that type of conversation was what I was going for.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And like even things that you don't think about, like the fact that it uses tiny little like razor blades, and so you have to mow your lawn before. So it's these kinds of questions that I would have never thought to ask. So that I think that's what made the video so special.
I have gotten a lot lazier since that video. So like that mowing the lawn before thing, or like not like, is in the manufacturers say like, oh, don't send it out if it's more than an inch of grass or 2 inches. I'm not sure, uh but like for 100% certain, I have just completely ignored that at times, like as in this scenario where I was talking about in July, where it's like really wet but it's growing a lot. Like sometimes you just stop the mower for that amount of time, and I take the approach of, I just send the mower out in if the grass is long, and it'll cut what it can cut. And it like I have clips of how long the lawn was when I installed that one out the front, which was like a €300 machine. So I don't know, 350 US dollars. Uh, and the grass was like a foot tall, and it eventually got through it all. It was fine, and that's like literally the cheapest one I could buy. Um, yeah, so yeah, it's definitely just throw it out and see what happens.
What do the kids and the dogs think of the mower when it's out? I guess they must be used to it by now, but there must have been some sort of adjustment period.
The kids used to follow the one that was out the back around. We don't tend to be out the front of the house very much, so they don't really pay much attention to the one that's out the front. Um, but it has definitely lost its appeal. That like is in they don't they're fine with it. Like, it doesn't bother them, but they wouldn't follow it around like they used to. The dogs, it moves really slowly, so it doesn't really bother the dogs at all. Like they're not afraid of it, and they're not anything with it. So nothing too exciting to report on that front now.
Well, that's good. I'll tell you, it's these kinds of videos. So, marketers, if you're listening, that would actually get me to buy a product. I think a sponsored video, like a showcase, It usually talks a lot about the positives because they kind of don't want you to mention the negatives. I mean, when I get products, it's with the understanding that I'm going to say whatever I want, but I'm
Mm,
not using YouTube to feed my family. Basically,
mm.
it's my extra money. Well, it's my extra cost, but that's
Yeah.
another story
Yeah.
altogether. But I, I'll tell you the first time I encounter a YouTube video about a robot vacuum that is completely dumb, that just, has no app and no nothing. If I ever happen upon that kind of video, I'm buying a robot vacuum. I mean,
And
it's that simple.
yeah.
I don't care enough to go hunting for it, but if someone made a video on a robot vacuum and explained that it didn't need an app and it doesn't like steal my data, then I would buy it right away. So that's, it's these kinds of videos, these sort of natural occurrences that are make me more likely to buy things instead of like a full sponsored video or even an ad. Like I don't think I've ever bought anything due to an ad.
I it must work a little bit. Like I do have a NordVPN subscription, and I must have come across, as in I've definitely come across that in like ads for everything. I won't say I like listened to an ad and went, "Oh, I must go out and get a NordVPN subscription." But when I was looking for a VPN, I was like, "Well, they're everywhere. They must be all right." um, but one thing that was interesting, and maybe you've the same thing because you've a couple of viral videos that the comments on the robot lawnmower video are so much worse than the comments on all my other videos. Um,
100%.
like they're so mean. Uh, like so much of the comments are about like my facial hair and stuff. Like, is it nothing that bothers me at all? But like, is it why would I listen to you when you can't even like maintain your beard? Like there's definitely a lot of neck beard comments and like people giving out about yeah, just how lazy I am and things like that. It's like I'm not impacted by it at all. I don't know. I've gotten to a stage in my life where that doesn't bother me. Um, like I would be much more bothered if somebody I respected didn't like a project I made than some random person telling me that my facial hair was weird. Um, but yeah, it's so interesting to see the difference that like as YouTube starts pushing it to this like broader audience, that the quality of comment just plummeted. Uh,
Oh, 100%.
um,
My battery video that went viral, I'm at 750,000 views on it. The I mean, I can split the comments nearly into thirds. Like one
mm,
third told me that I explained for way too much.
mm-hmm,
About another third complained that I didn't go into in depth enough detail. And
mm-hmm.
the other third tell me to throw out the battery and buy a proper brand name Makita one with a Makita charger.
Ah, yeah, of
And
course.
so you can't please, it's not that you can't please everybody, it's that when your video goes viral, you can't please anybody.
Mm,
It's just there's
yeah.
no winning.
I think that I think the robot lawnmower video is my only video where I put mid-roll ads in it. Like I generally don't put mid-roll ads in my videos. Like I could be wrong that I think it's the only video that has mid-roll ads. And it was just at this point where like I had like 10 negative comments in a row and I was just like, well, if these are the type of people who are getting my video now, maybe they deserve the mid-roll ads. Uh yeah, so yeah, it's kind of interesting once it reaches that level how it just I don't know
That's what I
degrades
did.
into chaos.
I did the exact same thing. I was like, if I have to suffer reading your comments, you'll suffer through watching the video too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like
Mid-roll
mid
ads
rolls.
can I squeeze into this? I absolutely can't stand it. I have YouTube Premium, and I've had it for years at this point. I used to get it a weird way. Basically, my my cell plan, I had leftover credit on my cell plan, and I could buy stuff on the Play Store with the credit. And one of the things I used to buy was the YouTube Premium subscription. But then I changed that cell plan to a different one, and I didn't have that kind of credit thing anymore. So there was like a day where it expired, and I didn't have YouTube Premium, and it was just YouTube was unusable to me for that day where I was like, oh, I am 100% getting YouTube Premium subscription again, just like out of my own money, because uh, this is unwatchable.
It is
Yeah,
100%. So yeah, I do the same thing as you. I don't put any mid rolls, but I think I have two videos with mid rolls. So it's that one and my next most popular video,
yeah,
because again, it's the comments. I mean, the podcast is great because the podcast audience are the same people every week.
mm,
So I mean, the comments are very minimal, but like you know who you are. You know, you're all good people. But like, yeah, the viral videos is brutal.
mm. I made a on the robot lawnmower videos. I I made a video about a Kickstarter robot lawnmower video as well, where I didn't really say. Well, I kind of gave out about the project a small bit, that well, I basically said that it was a huge risk to back this project, that you know like they look like an existing company, so that's they probably are, but like you know, they literally don't need to send you anything. Like you send them, like you kickstart this thing for $1,200 or whatever, and like with Kickstarter's terms and conditions, they don't need to deliver to you. And even if they did deliver, if there's something wrong with it, you have no reclaim to this. So I was like, this is a huge risk. I would not back it. Even though I was positive about like the technology of it. uh, there was a thing around where they did contact me about making a video, but when I said I wanted to say whatever I wanted about it, they never responded to me after that. So like I also thought that that was pretty suspicious, and I mentioned it in the video. And the comments on that video now uh, are all just like, I got this and it's the best thing ever. I bet you're sick, and you're just you're just jealous that like you didn't get one and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, cool, you got it, and you got it like a year later than they were meant to give it to you, uh, which was another thing I said could probably happen. Um, and it's like, I didn't say it was bad. I just said it was a huge risk. And just because, it didn't end up being a bad experience for you, doesn't mean it wasn't really risky at the time. And yeah, that video is just full of people saying that this is, you're just jealous that you didn't get one and you should have backed it, and it's the best thing I've ever seen. And it's like, all right, cool, you do you.
It's crazy too because people will go through so many, like, I know it feels like a lot of commenters head to YouTube after making a huge purchase,
Mm.
not to see details about what they purchased, but about like telling everyone that they made the right choice, whether
Mm.
or not it's the right choice, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
ego management, like like trying to dig in your heels and convince yourself you made the right choice, because yeah, people do that all the time. Like
Yeah, for sure. Like even so I got these uh I got these bone conductive headphones recently. Somebody on my Discord mentioned that this pair that they got on AliExpress were quite good, and they were pretty cheap. They were like $20 delivered or $25 delivered or something like that. And I got them, and I was generally pretty happy with them. Um, but as I was continuing to do more and more running, I was like, oh, I might actually treat myself to like the good pair. Like, as in, there is a pair that is like I don't know, getting Vera screwdrivers or some other sort of like, not they're not super expensive, but they're fairly expensive. Like they'd be maybe $120 or something, and they're called shocks, and they're meant to be like the standard for bone conductive headphones. And I got them for myself there on like Prime Day, uh, and I got them, and I was like, these do not sound or perform any better than my $20 Lenovo pair from AliExpress. So I'm after like processing the return for them now. I need to send them back. But I was thinking about like maybe on the Lock and Load channel, because it really doesn't belong on my main channel, about like doing a comparison of them. And like one of the thoughts that was going through my head is like the people that are going to be here are either people who want to buy these Shocks headphones and don't want to spend $120 on them, or they're people who have bought the Shocks headphones and want to like alleviate buyer's remorse or like validate their purchase, that that I'm after buying these $120 headphones and they're great, there's nothing better than them. So yeah, I have a feeling if I did release that video, I'd have a lot of people give it out to me about that too.
Just a quick interruption to talk about this episode's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay has been a long-term sponsor of the channel, and I think they're a good match for my channel because they provide quality PCBs for a reasonable price. You can get boards manufactured up to 100 mils by 100 mils for just $5, including shipping to Canada, $15 US, including shipping to USA, $12 US, which is incredibly cheap for professionally manufactured PCBs. I can personally attest to the quality of these PCBs, and so if you want a circuit immortalized forever, check out PCBWay.com with the link in the description. Now back to the conversation. You should though, because screw them. Like put it on the Brian Lough channel. Maybe you can, maybe you can buy a second pair of Lenovo's to just tear apart so it's more relevant. But
that is interesting, yeah.
Because I think honestly, first of all, I knew about bone conduction headphones, but I didn't know I could try them for a reasonable price on AliExpress. So just saying, if some sort of let's just say someone with initials B and L were to make a video on them, then I would have clicked their affiliate link and then bought some to try it. I'm just saying.
Just saying. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, that would be one advantage of a video like that. I'm a big fan of affiliate marketing. I don't know if we talked about this the last time I was on, but I'm a big fan of affiliate marketing. But I don't have, similar to what you said a minute ago, I do not rely on YouTube to feed my family or anything. It is a hobby type situation. And yes, I guess I'm because I'm not doing a whole lot on it at the moment. It is probably cash positive, but not that positive. So I do not need to like get this affiliate money. So I have never once tried to push something that like to just get the affiliate money out of it. But it's impossible to trust anybody now, right? Like, as in, like, I know my motivation isn't to flog Lenovo bone conductive headphones, but anybody who comes against my video probably think I'm just being positive about it, or they could think I'm just being positive about it because of like the affiliate type things. It's sort of it's pretty difficult to nearly trust anybody on YouTube, like, other than people that you've been watching a while and you've gotten to trust that they aren't just trying to flog stuff to me. But yeah, just randomly coming across people, it's impossible to know their motivations for what they're saying or what they're sharing.
Yeah, that's why people can trust me, because you send me a microcontroller and then I spend an hour trying to get it to work. It doesn't work. And I say, maybe the product's good, but I wouldn't know because I can't freaking make it work. Stupid.
Yes.
I had this experience with the M5 stack. Like, I really love their products. Like,
Mm.
the form factors are
Mm-hmm.
awesome, unique, one of a kind. They've got a decent knowledge base and everything, but holy crap, they are not beginner friendly. Like,
Mm.
I had to have oh geez, Adam Bryant, there we go, who was
Mm-hmm.
pretty involved in M5 stuff, guide me through on a live stream how to get anything out of these micros working. And
Mm.
I mean, even some of the stuff they advertised on their page, like being, the Arduino libraries and stuff. So I couldn't get anything to upload from the IDE following their instructions. So
Yeah.
that's how you can trust me, because any, anybody in their right mind would just not send me anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Yeah.
Horrible. But I do know a little something which maybe you can tease for the audience. You have found something inexpensively on AliExpress, and you are kind of working with it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I would love to. Um. Yeah. So similar to your experience with the M5 stack stuff, there are a lot of kind of displays on AliExpress that like are kind of all in one thing. So they're an ESP32 with a built-in display, and there's some other stuff like SD card readers and things like that. And Lily Go make plenty of them that you come across as well. But the issue I have anytime I get one of them is that like it is quite difficult to get up and running with it. Like they might provide some examples, or maybe they don't, and they're always using like some weird library you've never heard of or used before, and it could even be like not on the Arduino library manager, so you need to like install the zip from somewhere else, and maybe it's some specific version. And it's always just kind of weird, like it's never a nice experience. Um, so what I've been trying to do with the help of people on my Discord, and hopefully soon the wider community, is uh, we came across these displays. They're sort of distinct in their markings because they use like a yellow PCB, and so there's one specific one, and let me call you out its name now. It's the ESP32 2432 S028. So it really rolls off the tongue. And the problem is that there's like seven or eight made by the same manufacturer with this yellow PCB that are like slightly bigger. Some have higher resolution. Some use a different ESP32 chip. Loads of weird stuff, right? And I was kind of thinking that, like, okay, that name's terrible. First thing that needs to go is the name. So the one that I'm trying to work with the most is called that I've decided to call the cheap yellow display. Um, so that's a pretty memorable name in terms of it's much easier to remember than the letters and numbers I just called out a second ago. And the idea is that we can try build a community around that specific display. So you can buy this display for about $15 from AliExpress delivered, and it's got your ESP32. It's got a USB port, so for programming and power. It's got a 320 by 240 touchscreen display. So, like, uh, if you're not familiar with Arduino stuff, that mightn't sound that impressive, but it's not the highest resolution display you could get for an Arduino project, but it's pretty high. It's higher than most. It's a color display, so it looks pretty good as an SD card reader and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going for it. And for those who aren't familiar as well, the ESP32 has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It's a very powerful microcontroller. So really, there's a lot you can do with that board. Like there's a lot of projects that you could tackle with it. And yeah, the general idea of the cheap yellow display project basically is to provide a nice way of, or provide support for this display basically. So I presume, I don't remember, but I presume the last time I was on the podcast, I would have been talking about my Tindy store and the products I would release on Tindy. I don't do that anymore. I stopped making hardware. It was just too much work involved in like getting all this up and running and like maintaining the store and shipping products and that type of stuff. But like I did, I did kind of learn some things about like what people liked about the whole Tindy experience, and I think a lot of people liked having this documentation that was like, you buy the product, there is now a page you can go to like just follow steps of how to set it up. There's a bunch of examples there ready to go so you can get up and running as quick as possible. And there's even maybe places like say my Discord where you could go and say, "Hey, I got this product off Brian. I'm trying to do this thing and it's not working as I expect." And people from my community could even potentially answer the question, or I could answer the question. And I think that's what people really enjoyed out of the Tindy experience. They probably didn't enjoy paying me more for stuff than it would cost them if they got it from AliExpress. Like this cheap yellow display thing, if I was to make and sell these, this would be $35 at least. Like I wouldn't be able to make them delivered to me for $15. Like
No way.
no way, not even close. Like if you were to buy an ESP32 and the display module on AliExpress, it would cost more than the cheap yellow display. Um, so I don't know how they do it. Um, Maybe I don't even want to know in some ways. That maybe they're like, it's just, I'm hoping it's just scale. Maybe they're some factory rejects or things. I have a few of them here and I haven't seen any problems. Um, but yeah, the idea is to like have this be a really good platform for people to build projects on. And I kind of see it being sort of useful for a few different types of people. So, like, one would be people who are just sort of getting started. So, you're kind of in a unique position, Dan, in terms of like when you're working on an Arduino project, you have the electronics knowledge, right, in terms of doing your connecting up of stuff. So, for somebody who's starting off with an Arduino project, there's sort of like three different things that they might need to know. Like, as in, so one is the programming side of things. So that is its own challenge in itself, and we'll just park that for a second. And then you also need to like wire things correctly, right? As in you need to
Yep.
do this hooking up of stuff, and like there's challenges with that in terms of like if you're just completely new to it, like what wires do you connect to each other? Do I connect ground to ground or should I be connecting it across? You just sort of, it's all new to you, so it's a new challenge. And then stuff like soldering as well. Like if you're trying to connect to this display and the first thing you needed to do was like solder pins on to your ESP32 and you've never soldered before, like how do you know that your solder is good? So like if you were to try recreate this display as a beginner, before you even try run code on it, you need to probably solder header pins to both the display and the ESP32. and then you need to like use a breadboard, which you might know how to do, to do the connections between them. And only when you get to that point can you attempt to put code on it. And if it doesn't work, you do not know what the problem is. As in, was it the code that's wrong? Was it your wiring that's wrong? Or was it the soldering that's wrong? So, like, with a product that has everything already connected, it removes kind of two of those things. Now, there's still a chance that the display could be faulty or something, but it does ship with an example on it. So if that example works, like looks okay, you could be pretty sure the hardware is okay. So then, like, if you're having a problem, there's only one thing it could be, and it's the code. So it's nice that it rules out a couple of different things. So I think it's a really good platform for sort of beginners to get used to. Um, and then, like, another thing I think that's quite beneficial about it is like I do a lot of the main type of projects I would make are something that connects to the internet and displays information. That's sort of the bread and butter of projects that I make. Uh, and in order to display information, you need to be able to display it somewhere. And so, like, nearly all of my projects would involve me connecting a Wi Fi based microcontroller to some sort of display. And you know, so I could buy an ESP32 and a display module and wire them up to each other using DuPont connectors or whatever, or maybe use today's sponsor PCBWay and make a PCB to do the connections for me. I would be much more likely to do that. I hate wiring anything. Um, uh, but like isn't it's just an unnecessary step if there's an alternative, right? That like isn't I'm always just connecting a display to the ESP32. So why can't I just use this thing that is already a display connected to the ESP32? And it's going to be way neater too, right? Because they're just, it's just a credit card sized PCB. The display is on one side and all the circuitry is on the other. Um, so like it's I kind of say that it's like for lazy people, but like it's just an efficient way of working, right? And even what's kind of nice about it too is like when you're building a project from scratch and you literally have no constraints, you can do anything. Like, as in, you could use the biggest display, you could use the highest resolution display, you could do all sorts of stuff. You could maybe use an ESP32, or maybe use like the Raspberry Pi, the RP2040W, or whatever it is. You can do whatever you want, and like sometimes it's nicer to work within constraints, or it's like, okay, I have this project where, say, I want to display my Spotify music on it. Like, if you go, I'm going to put it on this cheap yellow display, like, I only have 320 by 240 resolution. That's a non-negotiable. It is a touch screen, so I have that ability to like make a touchscreen interface, but I don't have a lot of spare pins to add physical buttons, so maybe I don't use physical buttons, or if I do, I need to provide some way of working around that. Um, so yeah, I quite enjoy working within constraints of things. Like there's a project I came across that used the same type of display as the cheap yellow display, and it it's an emulator project. It's called Galagino, I think. Galagino. Um, and basically there's like 5 or 6 arcade cabinet games that are like running on the ESP32. So the original Donkey Kong, uh, Galaga, uh, Frogger, Pac-Man, and one other that Dig Dug, um, and like this person has made this project, and it's really good. And I was like, can I get this running on the cheap yellow display? But I don't have any spare pins left. Basically, I've only got 3 that I can use, and so I was like, how am I going to create the buttons for like playing these games? And uh, I was thinking of all these pin expanders and things that I could maybe use, and I was like, wait a second, I'm pretty sure I've used Nintendo Wii nunchucks for inputs before, and that uses just 2 pins and gives you like an analog stick and 2 buttons and an accelerometer. Um, so yeah, like I adapted the Galagino project to like use the nunchuck as the input, and it was that kind of. I find that quite fun working within constraints to solve problems. Like I think that's quite interesting. Um, yeah, so that's kind of that people, and then like the third type of people then is like people who aren't really interested in learning or building, like learning how to build stuff or whatever, but they just want to build cool stuff. Like, if you want that Galagino project, like, is in rather than you needing to learn how to solder or breadboards and stuff, like I was talking earlier, um, you could just buy the cheap yellow display and connect a nunchuck to it, and that's everything you need to get this project up and running. You still need to follow some instructions or whatever, but it's a lot simpler of an ask than like it reduces the barrier of entry for people who want to build that project way down. Because like if the prerequisites to you building the project before were, hey, you're going to need to buy this and this, you're going to need breadboards, you're going to need like tactile switches or whatever, you're going to need jumper wires, you're probably going to need to know how to solder. If you don't already have a soldering iron, you're going to need one of those. Like it just sort of reduces the barrier of entry hugely to some stuff. And another thing that uh, I've sort of did a lot of work on as part of the Tindy projects was like, could I make the projects really simple to consume? So I think it's the Home Assistant guys released a tool um, called the ESP Web Tools, I think it's called. But so basically, it's a way of so say I make a project of hosting this project on a website, and if you want to flash the project to your device, you just go to the website and click flash, and once you have the drivers installed, it will just flash the entire project directly onto your device. You don't even need the Arduino IDE installed. You don't need so that eliminates them having to install the Arduino IDE, the ESP32 board devices, the libraries that you might require, or changing like code to make it work. As in, this is just a project. You just go to this page and you click flash, and after 2 minutes, it's installed on your device. And what's nice about that type of thing too is like if people are building these projects for like one type of display, like the cheap yellow display, uh, you could try different projects out. As in you could try the Spotify project today and go, yeah, this is okay, but it's not really for me. And then you could try like the Galagino. Now, the Galagino project can't be web flashed for legal reasons, because that would involve hosting like ROMs
That
of.
makes sense.
Yeah, so there is some challenges, but like from a technical point of view, there's no reason you couldn't host the Galagino project, but yeah, legal reasons prevent us from doing that. But like any other project that exists, you could just web flash to that tomorrow, and it'd be fine. Um, so and also, if you make a project, or like I make a project, say the Spotify project that I was talking about, where like it connects to your Spotify account and displays the album art of what you're currently playing and the song details. Uh, like if I want to make a video and share that with people, it's such a lighter, like it can, the video can be much more focused on what you've built rather than, okay guys, the first thing you need to do is buy this ESP32, this display, and these DuPont cables and these whatever, and here's how you connect all these wires together. And I think it's my second most popular video is about connecting an ESP8266 to one of the matrix panels. And there is a mistake in that video. The wiring diagram is wrong, and I can't change it. So there's no annotations, there's no nothing. That video is just wrong, and like it's quite frustrating that like I put all this effort into making the video, talking through the wiring diagrams, and I made a mistake in it. And it could just remove all that type of stuff. And like what's nice about it being a community driven thing as well is things that I don't have any real interest in, like Home Assistant at the moment. I don't really have that type of stuff set up. It is interesting to other people. So already people, Johnny Bergdahl, I think you had him on the podcast a while ago.
Yep.
He's pushed changes to the GitHub repo for the cheap yellow display with examples for Home Assistant. Other people have made like random projects, like someone made a fluid simulation project, which is just like kind of, it has 3 different colors, and when you move the touchscreen around, it kind of simulates like knocking the water or whatever around the place. And like, even though I haven't, so like the GitHub is public for this project already. I don't hide the fact that I've been working on it, so it's not really a big behind the scenes thing. I just haven't released a public video on it. But like, even though it's just basically been floated to people in my Discord, we're already seeing the benefits of like all of us working on this one thing together. Like there's people on the Discord, Peter, who's like dug into the schematics and how it works, and has already made some like hardware modifications that have improved the display. Um, like that's not for beginners. Like it was going to probably be some fairly small soldering if you're not used to it, but it is interesting that that exists. That like is in there. Here is this existing product, and like we're even improving it at that point. As in like, hey, if you change this resistor to a different one, the audio sounds better. And if you add these capacitors here, the light dependent resistor works better. So, as in you can do auto adjusting better. So it's quite, I'm excited about it. I think it's really cool. Yeah, like I love getting things inexpensively. Like, isn't that has always been a big hobby of mine, which is a weird hobby to have. But like, I think the value proposition of something like this is so interesting that like it's such a cheap product, but now with the kind of support that we've started to add to it, like I can't see myself using anything else for my fetch something from the internet and display it type projects for a while, because it's just, why would I? It's quite physically, it's rather big. It has high enough resolution to be quite useful, and it's cheap. So it kind of ticks all the boxes.
Oh, definitely. And I just do want to mention though, if someone wants to get a more expensive but cooler display like that, a friend of the show, Dustin Watts, does produce ESP32 Touchdown, which is it's basically the same thing. Like it's a
Mm-hmm.
display, it's an ESP, But what's really cool is when you're ready to take your next steps forward in prototyping projects or whatever, he broke out all the pins for the ESP. I believe they're all broken out, so you can add more buttons and stuff to the
Mm.
project until Brian's released his video at the very least.
Yeah, I would say the touchdown is probably a better designed product than the cheap yellow display. There's some weird design decisions with the cheap yellow display. Like, for example, there are two broken out pin headers that, have some pins attached to them. Uh, uh, so there's four in total broken out, and one of them is completely pointless because it's connected to the backlight of the display. So like if you try use it for anything, the backlight of the display is impacted. Um, so it's kind of like, okay, what? Who decided that that was a good idea? Also, the touchdown is higher resolution than the cheap yellow display, so it's 480 by 320. And like I spoke about earlier, as in Dustin has made that uh has made the support around it too. So like as in like when you get a touchdown, like there's a big community around it. Uh like his flagship project for it, the free touch deck, is very impressive.
It
It's
is.
basically is it Stream Deck? Is that the
Yeah, yeah. It's hard
um
now because of the Steam Deck. And now you
yes.
get confused between the two. I know.
Yeah, that's a really cool project. A little bit of trivia for you, actually, a little known fact that I am the person who named the touchdown, sort of.
Oh, interesting. How did that
Yeah,
happen?
he was asking for suggestions for names for it, and I threw out the touchdown, and I guess it stuck.
That's
I don't know
awesome.
if that's public knowledge or not. Or maybe I'm revealing secrets. I don't think so.
It is
Um,
now.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a great name, though. I think it's like, but you know, marketing 101. Make your name memorable. I think the touchdown is a very memorable name. I think the what was it? ESP32 2432 S028 is not a very memorable name.
No.
So that's why I thought the cheap yellow display thing was appropriate.
Yeah, cheap yellow display is actually pretty good up until the manufacturers start using, a different solder mask, and then everything goes out the window.
Then we'll just have to throw the whole thing out. Um, yeah, there are other displays, as I was mentioning, and we're joking on the Discord of like, what are we gonna have to call these things? Like, is it slightly more expensive yellow display? Yeah, but we're going to focus on the cheap yellow display for the moment, and like I have some of the other ones here, so it's like if people find it interesting, like I wouldn't have no problem sort of facilitating like similar type pages for other displays as well. Um, yeah, because I think like I just really like seeing what people build with this stuff, and like one of my big goals was when getting into YouTube. I haven't been making a lot of YouTube videos recently, but is to lower the barrier of entry of like I'm friends with a lot of software developers through work and things like that who wouldn't have the same uh familiarity with electronics. Like I did electronics and computer engineering in university, so even though I wasn't using electronics at the time that like I picked up the Arduino stuff, I had the base knowledge there. Um, but yeah, like as I was saying, like if I have a friend who's like, "Oh, that sounds interesting," and the first thing I'm like, "Oh yeah, you just need to buy a soldering iron and some solder and like a probably a solder sucker because you're probably going to get it wrong the first few times, and it's a big ask, like, as in it's kind of like, hey, you'd need to sink maybe like $100 into this stuff. Well, you could buy cheap soldering irons, but
They work like crap though.
yeah, you need to spend at least $50, I would think, on solder equipment to like have an okay time. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, as in, like, people who are getting started out, they buy the $20 soldering iron, and they're like, "Why does this? Like, I suck at soldering." And it's like, you might be a beginner solderer, but you're using, like, since this is like cutting through steel with a butter knife, as in this would be challenging for anybody.
Yeah.
Uh, like, even if they knew what they were doing. Yeah, so like, if you can just like lower the barrier of entry for people, like, I think we'll just see so much more cool stuff being built. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about that.
I agree. I'm pretty excited too because well, I've never heard of these displays, but I did put together a PCB for a free touch deck, because the problem with ESP32 is that the dev boards, there's like 8 of them. And
There's probably more even. There's
yeah,
probably eight
probably.
popular ones.
Yeah, so I'll say there's 8 like that look to the layperson that look
Mm,
identical, I would
yeah,
say. And when Dustin Watts came out with his free touch deck project, I was like, sweet, I'm going to put one together. Turns out my ESP was not his ESP.
yeah,
And so I made a PCB to adapt them with his blessing. I mean, he told me it's open source, so he doesn't care.
yep,
But still, I mean, I like to reach out first.
yep.
And and yeah, so I made my own adapter board, and because I think his project is brilliant. It's exactly what I wanted. But now this to be accessible to, actually, I will say this cheap yellow display is actually cheaper than assembling your own ESP32 and screen, like you were saying. Like, I
Yep.
even back in 2020 maybe was when I made it,
Mm,
something like that. I still paid more back then, and now stuff has gone up in price. So
mm.
yeah, I may or may not have 3 cheap yellow displays in my shopping cart right now.
uh, yeah, just the free touch deck project doesn't work natively on it because of the resolution difference. I do see that somebody has ported it to smaller, like lower resolution displays, but like the official, like the Dustin Watts supported like GitHub one doesn't work. Uh, and that's for a 480 by 320 display. Um, so if Free Touch Deck is your project, this mightn't be the one for you. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody. uh, I don't have kind of too much interest in porting Dustin's work over to it because, I know how much work has gone into that project. That is one of the most impressive projects I've ever seen on a microcontroller. I kind of I wouldn't feel great about like making it easier for people to not buy touchdowns off Dustin, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I probably won't port that over or look at it, but it does seem to exist already. I wouldn't stop anybody else from doing it. Just yeah. But I hope there'll be plenty of projects for it that'll interest people. Like, as in, I've made a few already. The Spotify one I was talking about. Uh, I know you're into cars, but I don't know if you're into Formula One. I have a Formula One time display where, like, I don't know if you are into it. It's always all over the world, and the time zone of what is, and it keeps telling you, like, if you go to the Formula One website, it's like, hey, like, the GP starts at 3 o'clock. The Belgian GP starts at 3 o'clock, but it's in like Belgian time. So you're like, okay, so I need to convert this to my time zone, and it's just like it's not a great experience. Now there is alternative websites that change it to your time zone anyways, but like I built a project that like fetches when the next race is and like displays it in your time zone. Um and like those two projects can be web flashed, so you can get them, try them out without writing a single line of code. And yeah, my idea is to try like anything I make to make it web flashable and have this like library of stuff that people can just like swap between if they want them.
That is commendable, because I don't know how many times I just wanted to demo something and it ended up like an hour of like looking
Mm.
for the libraries and looking for, anything to work, because like WLED, for example, or WLED, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it.
Mhm.
um, their web flashing interface makes everything super easy. I mean,
Mm.
and WLED is a massively powerful piece of software that goes on ESP,
Yep.
and it's so effortless to like even I could do it, which is, I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, it uses the same like that ESP tools stuff is the like that WLED, whatever that is the same as the stuff that I'm using for the web flashing. So it's, yeah, if you've used that, it's the same thing as that. So it's really easy to use. You just need to use a Chrome based browser and away you go.
So look out on your Discord in the next 3 months or so, because I'm going to claim the spot for the crappiest cheap yellow display project ever.
I don't know. I have a pretty crappy one myself. This will only resonate with people who have kids of a certain age, but there's this Australian TV show called Bluey, and there's this device in one episode of Bluey called the yes no button, and it's literally just a device that like when you click the Y button it says yes, and when you click the N button it says no. And my daughter like randomly asked me one day to like, can we go to a shop that sells the yes no button? And I was like, what are you talking about? I do not understand this sentence at all. And eventually I figured out that she was talking about something from Bluey, and saw the episode of what she was talking about. And so she wanted a yes no button device, and I've bought some of the things from AliExpress for building a physical yes no button device. Um, uh, yeah, actually, that's I bought like I could have made it with an ESP32, but I didn't want something that complicated for it. It didn't. I thought it would be more interesting to see what else was available. I did find this device that like when you plug it into USB, it becomes a flash drive, and you can just drag MP3s onto it, and then you can wire up buttons to its sort of GPIO pins, and like when you press this button, it will play song 0001.mp3. And if you press this button, it'll play 0002.mp3. So I have like a breadboard version of the S no button working with that, and I'm just waiting for some of the other parts. Um, but like while I'm waiting for the parts, I was like, I could probably build this with the cheap yellow display pretty quickly, and like so like in about an hour of work, uh like I have this version of it now that like uses the amplifier that's built into the cheap yellow display with the touch screen to like, so I just draw this yes no button on the touch screen, and you click Y for yes and N for no, and like it works okay. And the amount of effort that was involved was not significant. So I think you can probably do better than the device that just says yes or no. Thank
I
you.
do actually. Now that you mention all these things, so the F1 project, the Spotify project, and the yes no button. I'm going to try to pronounce this right, but I saw your Zweets. I don't know what it's called now on
Oh,
the X,
Twitter.
whatever the X app is, which I've now deleted from my phone, which has
Mm,
been liberating. But yeah, so I didn't realize that all these things you were talking about over on X Twitter was actually using the cheap yellow display. So now I'm even more intrigued, and we really want that video. So
mm.
I would say if you're listening to this podcast at this point, you need to go into the comments and encourage Brian to release this video. I mean, I don't care. I don't care how many robot mowers you need to step over. We need it.
Yeah, I actually have some time off work next week, so that's probably when this video is gonna get done. Um, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be good. Um, if anybody is looking to kind of get head started on it, if you search for ESP32 cheap yellow display, you'll find the GitHub project, and there's links to affiliate links to the cheap yellow display. Um, and all the examples and stuff are already there. So yeah, there could be a bit of a rush on cheap yellow displays coming up soon enough. So maybe the price will go up. I don't know. I hope not.
Well, I mean, we'll just we'll keep it between us for a little bit, and
Yeah.
then I'm gonna stock up at the very least.
I definitely have 3 here. I think I might even have 4. Um, so maybe I need to stock up before I release the video too. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
another thing is like, uh, the people have made cases and stuff for it and stands and things like that. So it's not just for the code side of things that like you know there's a nice place to, hey, I need a stand for this. I'll see what people have made or whatever. And yeah.
that's pretty cool. I mean, if you're ever looking for a much larger scale project, it'd be super cool if somebody could figure out how to reuse like replacement screens for like phones and stuff,
Mm.
because they are such high resolution displays
Yeah.
with digitizers, but it seems like they're extremely proprietary. I'm sure somebody can crack the code.
Yeah, like that is something that like does make me wonder about things. Like is it, the cheapest phone you could buy, like touchscreen phone or whatever, would have a better display than this. And would probably have a better touchscreen than this and things like that. And it's kind of like, why can't why, or say another example is e-ink displays for like Arduinos or whatever. Like they're, well, maybe they've come down in price since I was looking at them last, but like you could buy a Kindle for like less than than a relatively small e-ink display, and it's like,
100%.
yeah, it's like, why can't I just use this? Yeah.
So if I'm looking here, so a iPhone 11 replacement screen with digitizer in Canadian pesos is
Wow.
$27.38. And so
What
that's,
resolution is that?
I don't know, it's Retina though, because it's like it's above 1080p,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And so like there's gotta be someone intelligent, not me, that can figure out how to use these with maybe not microcontrollers, but imagine the Raspberry Pi display, right?
Mm.
Like that would be incredible.
You'd need someone above my pay grade too. If you want to find someone who can like fetch some data from the internet and put it on them, I'm your guy. But uh, figuring out how to drive those displays, that's definitely not me, unfortunately.
But I guarantee you, as soon as someone does figure out how to drive the display, you're gonna put a sub counter on it.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. If you don't see the sub counter on your desk, what's the point?
Yeah, you know what? I have not made a sub counter video or project yet, and much less video. So maybe that's the first use of the cheap yellow display once it gets here.
Possibly. I must admit I do not have a sub counter anymore. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I just it doesn't appeal to me too much anymore. Also, they kind of it was years ago now. They removed a bit of the good from it that like you can't. You know, if I go to your channel now, I see rounded to the nearest thousand how many subscribers you have, and that's the same that you would see with the sub counters you build now. Like if you go to YouTube's Creator Studio, you can see the exact number, but
Yeah,
what's exposed through the API is just the rounded number. So it's not as fun as it was because you don't see like the daily kind of adding or removing of people.
pretty much everything that's interesting YouTube has removed. So
Yeah,
there's that.
that's just Google in general, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyways, speaking of which, this is actually sort of D-Day for the podcast, so I need to go edit this very podcast. However, I would like the listeners to go subscribe to Brian's channel because you do know there is a great video coming. Check the link in the description. Brian's channel will be linked there, as well as his affiliate link for the cheap yellow display. And he has not authorized me to use it, but I'm going to steal it from his GitHub. And and yeah, I hope you guys go and check out Brian's channel. Do you have anywhere else you would like to direct people, Brian?
No. I
Not
used to
even your
use
Discord?
yeah, I don't have a I don't have a good link to that at the moment. The
Oh, I'll put it.
Discord is interesting. Yeah, I could share you a link to that. Like I used to use Twitter a lot and I don't use it so much anymore. So I've kind of sort of given up on that. Also, if this video is coming out tomorrow, right? This podcast.
Early access tomorrow, and it's going live on Thursday, so on the
Okay.
3rd.
The Maker Cast is on this Sunday as well. So I will be on it. I think it's like the 50th episode or something.
Oh boy, it's a big one.
So that is a big one. Yeah. So maybe I was going to say you could come there and hear what I have to talk about. But I'll probably just be talking about the cheap yellow display again, so you can maybe skip my part. But there'll be other interesting people at that too. So yeah. Other than that, I think I'm kind of giving up. I've given up Twitter. Well, I haven't fully given up Twitter, but I don't use it anymore. I have given up Reddit, so I've nowhere to direct people for that. So yeah, I'm a ghost now.
I'm on Threads. Are you on Threads?
No, didn't bother.
Oh,
Uh,
you should. It's just if for no other reason than to piss off Elon.
yeah. Well, I guess I also achieved that goal by just not being on Twitter
Yeah.
too, right? Yeah, it was sort of like uh, someone I follow on Twitter summed it up. This like, guys, you're all flocking to this, you know, Facebook owned thing that isn't even allowed in the EU because it has privacy concerns. It's like, why? Yeah, I I I have a love hate relationship with social media, and I'm trying to use it less. The YouTube stuff is not an attempt to try use it less. Like as in me not releasing videos. That's just me prioritizing some other stuff. But like my step back from Twitter and Reddit and stuff like that, that is a direct approach to me trying to step back from social media that I I've gotten a lot of good from social media. Sorry, I don't want to start up another conversation when you
No
edit it,
worries.
but like I've gotten a lot of good from social media. Like I've met a lot of interesting people. Like there's a ton of people on my Discord that like you know even the cheap yellow display stuff. Like you know a lot of good has come out of it for me. I've met Like I'm good friends with people like Bitlooney and his partner. Like they came and visited my house last year. We visited their house. We still like text each other fairly regularly. Like there's so much good came out of it, but there's so much bad stuff coming out of it too. And I just hate how much of a time sink it is. So I am trying to step back from social media a little bit. So yeah, but I will hopefully release more YouTube videos. I don't count YouTube as social media for some reason.
If I can give you and everyone listening just a little bit of last minute unsolicited advice about social media, is just be trigger happy with the block button.
Mm.
Follow good people. I mean, what I've done is I've secretly gone into like Becky Stern's replies, like Twitter replies, and I've followed all the cool people on her list.
Mm.
And people like that. I've done it with Billy Rubin. I've done it with quite a few creators that I admire. And then basically, I just blocked all the negative stuff that the algorithm was feeding me, and now my feeds are quite positive and quite maker centered. So I think I think that's a good alternative for those that aren't like you, who don't want to reduce their consumption. They just want an overall more positive experience. I think that's a good way to do it.
That does seem like a good suggestion. My Twitter used to be a lot better than it was pre Elon, if I'm being honest. But even still, just the doom scrolling. I just don't want to doom scroll anymore. Even if the things that are showing up are somewhat related, they aren't necessarily negative. It just I don't know. I don't think I ever really come out of like spending an hour on my phone going, geez, I feel so much better about myself. So yeah, that's my New Year's resolution. I'm semi making in the middle of the year.
Fair enough. And so yeah, I would say at the very least everyone should go check out Brian's channel and subscribe. I think you have a GitHub sponsors as well. Am I mistaken about that?
I do have a GitHub sponsors. It is the most. I think we talked about this the last time too, but it is the most like they are getting the worst value from GitHub sponsors I have ever seen. Like, as in, I haven't even provided an update in months. So until I start making videos again, or I have been making some projects, so I guess they are getting that. But so does everybody else. But until I start making videos again, I don't think it's a good idea to be to
With
be
that being
sponsoring me.
with that being said, if you have an extra fiver burning a hole in your pocket every month, I wouldn't know a better place to put it. How about that?
I could think of a few better places to put it. Anywhere. On the back of the couch, maybe.
And so before Brian talks you out of supporting him anymore, I'm going to end the podcast here. Thank you so much, though, Brian, for taking your time, especially at the very last minute, preventing me from being alone with my thoughts. They're quite scary. And so, yeah, thanks for taking your time and coming onto the podcast.
You're more than welcome.
All right. See you guys on the next one.